Welcome. Thank you for joining. We're using Teams, and I know that's new for some people, and maybe some people will come on as we get going also. So everything's fine. Um, just feel free to raise your hand. There's a little icon that says raise, and it's a little hand at the top of your screen. Usually, it's on a ribbon, and Melissa will try to track who would like to ask a question. Use your camera as much as you're comfortable, and mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We may have some conversation in the chat, but generally this is a small group and very specific, so we'll probably just take questions verbally. Okay? All right, let's get started. Next slide. Right, so this is our agenda today. We're going to meet each other, and you'll have another chance in August to maybe meet in person. And we're just going to have a quick overview of the council and the role of your membership. Then we're going to look ahead to reviews. And we're going to learn how to send and receive files, because that's really important. And then we're going to get into the really interesting stuff, paperwork and bureaucracy. Just everyone should know this meeting is being recorded and it will become part of our public record. So just for your information. And we have some members of the public who've joined us, and today's agenda does not include any public member participation or comments. So just be aware we won't be taking public comments. Great. Next slide. So welcome to the council. My name is Kelly Mills, and I manage translations at the Secretary of State's Elections Division. And I'm glad to see all of you and your faces finally. Welcome. Some of you waited over 2 years to join us, and you've come on now. And I have Melissa Maibori. She's our program specialist. If you want to say hi, Melissa.
Hi, all. It's a pleasure to be part of the team, and looking forward to meeting all of you. Welcome. I'm new as well, so this is I'm on this orientation as well today. So
I have her full attention. And then I put up our email because that is also who we are. It's the best way to reach us is to send an email to tacinfo@Secretary of State SOSOregon.gov. TAC means Translation Advisory Council .information, TAC info. You can certainly contact us other ways too. At the end, I'll give our contact information. But here you are. This is a list of the new members. Incredibly, there are 10 new members, 28 total in our council, including you, which is pretty amazing. And we have 13 others who are continuing since they were appointed in 2022. And we're still recruiting a few new members for new languages. And also, just FYI, we are looking for a replacement for our Japanese reviewer. So welcome. And those are your names. And I learned how to pronounce Chi Richardson's name. So we'll meet each other and learn together. Very excited to see all the languages. Okay, next slide. We're going to do council overview. Next slide, Melissa. Thank you. Yeah, so we work for the Secretary of State, which is a constitutional office in the Oregon Constitution, and we work in the Elections Division. And so our Secretary of State is the Chief Elections Officer for the state of Oregon. There's a lot of responsibility there, but also our Secretary oversees the State Archives and State Audit Division and Corporation. So people who run businesses work with that office. So it's a diverse office, and elections is the most important, but don't tell anyone else. Melissa and I are your staff. So when we talk about council staff, these are the things that we do related to your work with us. We coordinate all the translations for elections. We coordinate with the counties. So we work with 14 counties that produce pamphlets. There are 36 in Oregon, but only 14 produce pamphlets. It's kind of a budgetary issue. And we make sure that we're following the law and that they are too, to get the translations online for each quarterly election. We also contract the translation vendors. Right now, we are working with Barbier International. It's an international translation company that serves several agencies in the state of Oregon. And we prepare, after you tell us what you think needs to be improved in translations, we coordinate the recommendations and edits to the final documents. We're going to be talking a little bit later. We do send out some payments to you in appreciation for your time, and we coordinate that, and of course the meetings, the meeting invitations, and so on. And we maintain resources for you, handbooks, glossaries, bylaws, and meeting minutes, and so on. Just a little note to clarify, we are holding the August 10th meeting in person in Salem, in North Salem, the Kroc Center, Salvation Army Kroc Center. And yeah, you had a hold the date reservation meeting invitation, which was canceled. And then Melissa sent out a new link to the meeting. So if there's any question about that, Melissa can help you get on the right track. Okay. Also in elections, I wanted to say that there's more than translating the voters' pamphlets. There's campaign finance, so every candidate and their office coordinates all reporting their expenditures, and there's lots of laws around that. Just voter customer service. We provide resources to candidates and political parties as they prepare for elections. We check signatures and verify state initiatives and referendums for elections that will be on ballot measures statewide. We do federal reporting about elections. We make policy and advocate for legislation that supports free, fair, and elections with accurate information. So we have someone who works on dis and misinformation, which is in our wheel these days, and then just various voter systems and operations. So when you go online to register to vote, you can do that, and that's one of our systems that we maintain. Okay, next slide. So we're all here because we believe that people whose first language is not English should be participants in our democracy and this great thing that we call a democracy. And part of that is voting. And so we are serving limited English proficient Oregonians. This data is a little outdated. I was trying to run through data right before the meeting, but I'll have to update it later. But as of 2 years ago, 6% of Oregons speak English less than very well. So they self-identify in census that they speak English less than very well. Another measure is there's over 500,000 members of our community who speak a foreign language at home. So they may be very proficient in English or not, but their home language is not English. So we exist because of statute, which was passed in 2021 and has been updated in 23 and 24. But basically, we come up with a list of languages for translation, the reason we're here, and we use the US Census American Community Survey data. So that's a survey that's done annually, whereas the census is every 10 years. And it digs down quite much deeper into who's living at the home and what languages they speak. Also, I just wanted to clarify that we use the data for limited English proficiency and not the data for languages spoken at home. If we use languages spoken at home, we'd probably be providing translations for Intel engineers in Hillsboro who speak Hindi or Telugu or something like that. And so we really want to target the audience that needs services most. Slide. So again, in statute, we have a formula to know what the languages are. And so we do simplified Chinese these are as of 2022. A bill just passed in the legislature in 2024, so we're going to be adding languages. But the formula is the top 5 state languages, which is users of simplified Chinese script, Korean, Russian, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So that's in alphabetical order, not by population. Of course, Spanish is our largest group. And then we take the top 10 languages of every county that produces a voter's pamphlet and add them in there as well. So we get the top 5 plus over those 14 counties, we have Arabic, French, German, Japanese, Marshallese, Tagalog, Thai, and Ukrainian. So we're doing 13 languages, and in January 2025, we will add other languages. It looks like it's going to include the script or characters of traditional Chinese, Farsi, Mian, Nepali, Somali, and it also will, the formula will increase or expand some of the languages that we already have. So Japanese will be in more counties, for example, Arabic, and so on. Okay. So if your language isn't there, you're in the wrong meeting. Okay, next slide. So this is all a team effort. You're a very important member of our team, and we couldn't do it without you. This is really special. It's unique legislation to have third-party reviewers from our community review translations in elections nationally. So it's very amazing and wonderful that we are supported by your presence, your knowledge, and your experience in your languages and in your communities. We work with the translators. They're professional translators, and their job is to do a process of translation, editing, and proofreading, and they use the resources that we provide them. We have developed with our council over the last 2 years glossaries and a style guide, and then they also use translation memory software for future use. So when they translate some word like optional general obligation bond, right? ELUM, they're going to translate it the same way every time after we've determined the term in our glossary, because these are very specialized terms and we want to make it appropriate. The council, your job is to review professional translations. You're not hired as a translator, so you can let that go. But you all have an interest in language. Some of you are translators in your life. Some of you, probably all of you, have served as interpreters for family members or friends, and probably translations at times too. But your job is to look at translations and offer suggestions to make them better. And then the council staff. We review all your suggestions and we consult with you and the vendors, translators, to make sure that we come up with the best and last translation for each election. We've been evolving over 7 elections, and we're getting pretty good, but you're going to be joining a well-oiled machine that moves really quickly. And again, as I mentioned, the translators come back at the end and they update the translations and their memory software. So welcome to the team. Next slide. So if you applied, you saw probably our website and our application, and you'll know that we are reviewing voters' pamphlets. Occasionally we'll do other things like voter registration cards, and also the council made some outreach materials, but generally our primary goal in statute is to review voter pamphlet translations. So in terms of content, we don't translate everything in the pamphlets. We translate and review general voter information, ballot measure information at the state and county levels. And then shockingly, people are always surprised, the statute does not include candidate statements. So we don't translate those, but you may be reviewing those, and I'll mention that. And we do not translate arguments for or against ballot measures. That's another part of our process and democracy, that things that show up in the voters pamphlet. So generally, general voter information, how do you register, frequently asked questions, your rights as a voter, and so on, are general information, and then the specific ballot measures. Your job, and we're not going to spend a lot on this today because I'm going to send you off to review a fabulous training we did in February with a fabulous presenter, Chantal Portillo, PhD. There she is. We spent a lot of time talking about the categories and how to use your time appropriately and where to focus your efforts. So we'll be talking in a minute about style preferences, but your goal pretty much is to check for accuracy in terms of meaning for meaning. And so this is where we ask you to develop your background and information about translations, and that it's not a literal word for word written message. It is a written message that conveys the same meaning using the appropriate phraseology, syntax, and style of the language, which is often very different than English. And also the role of the council is to review for cultural appropriateness. So some of that we've had in the last couple of years would be like a recommendation for a more respectful way to describe people with disabilities, a more inclusive language, for example. You know, sometimes choice of words can be misunderstood. So the example I have is our Chinese reviewer said that a translation word choice had a negative connotation, I'm reading, almost suggesting torture. So we know that's not what they meant, but it could be conveyed or understood that way. So, you know, the member suggested something else. Right. So that's your job. And next slide. How that happens is reviews. And Melissa will be talking to you in a little bit about how to get this paperwork and work on it and send it back and forth. But this is if you can see on the slide, this is a little snip of our review form. And we have categories of reviews, and you can read a little bit more about this in your handbook, as well as great examples from our council. And then if you review the video that I'm working on editing, so you don't have to watch the whole thing, that will help you get into some of the details. And I just say that because today, obviously, it's a short meeting, and it's really just to get you up and running, but it's not going to tell you everything you need to feel completely confident, which you will get over time. Okay, this review form. So there's several columns. Basically, it's broken down into short segments, and they take the source text from the draft voters pamphlet, and they put it into sections. And then our translators provide in the language column their initial translation suggestion. And then your column is the TAC reviewer column. So that's where you're going to read it and decide if the translation makes sense, if it's the same meaning, and if there's any improvements, or if there's any errors, like the date didn't get changed or something. And these are categorized into critical errors, or mechanical errors, or preference and style errors. And that's where you're really going to learn a lot more from the video in your handbook to focus. Also, you can just accept it. That's what we learned in February. You don't have to make a suggestion if you think it's pretty darn good. You don't have to show us that you're doing your job by always making a suggestion. I have to say that because I know a lot of you are extremely conscientious and maybe a little opinionated. Please don't use the language column. For example, retranslating the sentence in the language column, or changing it in any way, or replacing a word that you would like. All of your comments go in your column, and there's a space for comments. It looks small, but this is a Word doc. So when you type in, there'll be plenty of room. And you're going to write your comments and suggestions in English, which sounds strange, but I am the program manager and of the project. And so I look at your reviews before I send them back to the translation team. And so I can't read Vietnamese this week, but maybe next week. And so your comments will be in English. And again, the handbook has great samples of how to provide that kind of feedback. So it might say, the intent of this sentence is X, but the translation is Y. You say that in English, and then maybe you would include your suggested translation in Chinese or Spanish. That's when you would use the language. So this is just very high overview. What else can I say about this? Generally critical and syntax, mechanical, they're things that actually will change the meaning, be inaccurate or grammatically incorrect. Just kind of the black eyes we don't want to have in our translations. And then preference and style is typically your word order or the way you like to say things compared to the professional translator. So, okay. Next slide. You guys are awfully quiet, but I'm glad we're going to get through the information. Maybe we'll have time for questions. We're going to move on now about how to receive and send files in ShareFile. And this is Melissa's area because she is our, I don't know, document guru. There's things flying internationally and locally throughout the election, lots of files back and forth. And so take it away, Melissa.
I prefer to be called the chaos orchestrator of fine detail. I don't know. We'll work on the title. Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa, program specialist with TAC. I'm going to go over ShareFile, and it's going to be a very just overview step-by-step of what it might look like to use the software. By raise of hands, how many of you have interacted with ShareFile out of curiosity? Nobody. Okay, so I am talking to a lot of newbies. Great. Well, welcome. I'm going to take you through it. So step one, how do I receive the documents for review? We use ShareFile. This is a system that the state uses as a secure system for sharing documents with external stakeholders like yourselves. So you might be familiar with Dropbox or Google Drive or SharePoint. If you have a Mac, it would be the cloud. So you can see those icons that I shared there, similar, but a different system. So that's what ShareFile is. It's a cloud-based system. So similar process, but we'll take you through those details. How will you get access to ShareFile? Right now, each of you don't need to sign up with an account. So everybody can say, whew, I don't have to like create a new password. No, you don't. Congratulations. So for now, well, we'll see. Anyways, so you will get an email from me that will give you 2 links. So you can see in this right-hand corner, download and review. And then the second link will say submit review to SOS. So the first link, you'll download it. The second link, you'll submit it. And that's how we get around having an account. So fairly easy concept. And at any point you need me to pause or clarify, just let me know. What does that look like inside the ShareFile software? Each of you will have a folder. And so it will open up like this. You'll usually have the document that looks like this. EN pertains to the language that a document is in. So that's English. This example is Vietnamese, and our code for Vietnamese is VI. So you'll see the documents that we ask you to translate in those codes. And then we'll usually give you the style guide and the glossary as well. And so initially you'll just download all of those documents to your folder. You'll save them, and then you'll edit the Word document that you're requested to provide review in reference to what Kelly talked about earlier in terms of that chart. So you'll save and edit as needed. And as noted, all the documents that you'll be editing will be in Microsoft Word. And then once they're downloaded, you'll go back to that link that I referenced before, submit to review in the email, and you'll just click that. And you'll be able to upload or also drag and drop the documents into that share file folder. For me, on my side of things, once downloaded, is this the right slide? Sorry. Uploading. So once you drag and drop, sorry, I was on the wrong slide. Once you drag and drop the documents, your documents on my side of things will show up as anonymous. So I'll know which documents I'm receiving on my side of things. And then it's pretty straightforward from there. Chantal, yes.
Yes, thank you. I had two short questions.
Yeah.
When you say that we would each have a file, do you mean that by language, each person receives a file like per group of reviewers, or is it each individual member receives the files?
Yeah, good question. So you won't see the folder on my side of things. We have all the folders for each reviewer on TAC. And so the links that I'll give you, the first one and the second one, will be to your folder. And so you will just download the documents from your folder, and then you'll just upload to your folder. So the only access you will have is to your folder. So you don't have to navigate the system. I'll navigate it for you.
And second question, do all the members of a language group review all the files, or do you like divide and conquer and send certain files to certain people?
That's a great question. We send certain files to certain people, depending on depending on the number of reviewers for each language as well. But we usually try to divide up amongst reviewers depending on the number that we have for each language. It's a great question.
Thank you so much. That was all.
You're
Thanks.
welcome. Yeah. So that's uploading. And then once you've uploaded your documents, I will get a notification on my end that you have uploaded your documents. You are welcome to email us at the TAC inbox email as well to converse and confirm however you want to communicate. I'm totally open to that. But you just upload and then finished. Any other questions? Okay, awesome. Kelly?
Yeah, so a couple things I thought of. It's not a collaborative software, and that's one of the requests of the council. They'd like to see what other people think and are writing. There isn't a lot of time for collaboration, but we have been working with our IT department, and we think we figured out a little angle for that. So we're going to be talking about that when we meet in August. So that might be where you can see what Chantal said for line 7, AIDA, in the same language. And, you know, if that's interesting to you or important, that's an option we're going to be having in the future. The other thing about SharePoint is, not SharePoint, but Melissa mentioned we do this in Microsoft Word. And a few of our members in the past have not had that, did not purchase that package. So we found, what's it called? Libre, Libre. It's a way for people who don't have Microsoft Word to convert the files so you can basically work in Word. And I don't know how that works, but it's free. So if that's something, you might want to let us know that that's your situation, and we'll just be aware of it in case there's any difficulties. Okay. And also, I just say, as a person who doesn't love change, ShareFile is relatively easy to use, and anyone can learn it. All right, next slide. Now we're kind of going to get into the nitty gritty. Not the most exciting, but important. And go ahead and next slide, Melissa. So council engagement. We do have some rules. They're in our bylaws. And again, these were developed over the first 7 elections with our council, and they voted these in last winter, I think. But basically, we have a few meetings a year, and good quality participation means that you pre-read agendas or any documents and be prepared for the meetings. Early on, we held meetings 3 or 4 times a year, and I think we're down to probably a couple times a year at this point. And we always have one meeting in person because of the social aspect and just kind of collaboration. In August, we will be sitting with language groups and discussing some changes that have been suggested for style guides and for the glossary, for example. And not all members have a language peer group. German, for example, there's a single translator member. And that's because there are only 2 pamphlets in the state that are done in German, the state pamphlet and Yamhill County. So there are a few groups like that, and we'll have something for you to work on as well. But basically, it's important that you fulfill your commitment as a volunteer. There are 4 elections a year possible. So every quarter there can be an election in March, in May, in August, and November. The big ones are always May and November. So this is 2024. It's a general election year, a presidential election year. We had the primary in May, and we will have the general in November. So those are big statewide, and all the counties that have pamphlets participate. Now, Melissa and I are working on an August 2024 election, and we have one county that has an election, Deschutes County. So we're working with our French translator member, our Tagalog, and then the state top 5 languages for that election. So we have big elections, ridiculously big elections, and we have small elections. And we would like you to commit to as many as you can, but to be engaged, the bylaws say that you can miss 1 a year, basically. Like, I'm going home to Saudi Arabia to visit my family, and I won't be available. And that's certainly fine. We understand you have other things in your life besides us. Also, for the full council meetings, you can miss 1 meeting a year. Again, that was more important in the past when we had, 3 or 4 a year. But yeah, when you miss 1 out of 2, it's like 50%. So that's what we're looking for. And we just really appreciate communication with us. If you're not going to be there, sometimes there's a remote option, or just, catch up and read minutes and so on. And this is another one. So we do send a lot of emails. We're sending emails with those links. We're sending reminders. In next week, it's going to be review week. Don't forget. Sometimes we need a response because we're planning a meeting and trying to figure out what date works for people. So whenever you see an email that starts with action needed or response requested or something like that, those are important emails, and we really are asking for a response or some, action from you. So please follow those and respond accordingly. Okay. That's the rules. And of course, the full bylaws are in the handbook, and you can take a look at those anytime. Next slide. This is the calendar for the general election. It's very big because we are doing state and federal as well as county translations. So we've sent out the calendar of dates, and you should all have that. We can resend it if you need it, but here it is in a different format. we're asking you to hold these dates. So think about your work and other commitments, vacations, Labor Day, and when you probably will be working on reviews. So if you work full time, it's going to be evenings or the weekend. And you can see from these dates, sometimes you have a full week and sometimes you have 72 hours. So it really varies. And we really appreciate if you plan ahead. They're predictable and we do reminders. So that's what we'd like. Basically, we start reviewing the state voter pamphlet information, general information in, a few weeks, and you'll have a good 10 days to look at that. And like Chantal was asking, we're going to divide it up between the language members. Maybe Aida will be looking at voter registration information, and Chantal will be looking at drop sites and voter rights. We work closely with Multnomah County. I wanted to point out Elam. He is a member from the Multnomah County Elections Office. He's a bilingual Vietnamese member of our council and staff. So anyway, Multnomah, they do a great service by actually printing and mailing their voter pamphlets to the community, and they do some general information in translation. So we help them out, and Elam helps us out, and we do reviews for them earlier for their county general information. So if you are a member of Chinese, Korean, or Russian, you will be working with us during that week to look at just Multnomah. And then all the other counties extends 3 days longer. So all the other languages and counties will be reviewing the 13th through the 19th of August. And then August 28th to the day after Labor Day. I hope you plan ahead because I don't want you spending your whole Labor Day laboring, but we'll be looking at, this is the big crunch because of the election timelines. This is where we have the least flexibility. We'll be looking at statewide ballot measures. And also, I mentioned I was going to talk about this. Filers can submit their own translations of arguments for or against state ballot measures, and they're not very good. Oh, these are submitted. They're often Google Translate. No, you didn't hear me say that. Anyway, the council will be reviewing those and rejecting those that do not maintain the same meaning. And we'll be talking more about how to do that and what to look for at our meeting in August. And also filers of candidates. Candidate statements can be submitted by the candidate with their own translations. And so we do some reviews of those that last week of August. Very interesting. The one I remember from last time, Melissa worked on the primary, BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous people of color, in Ukrainian came out as colorful people. So, we're always learning and working with our translators about the most appropriate language when they come in and they're not professional translations. And then again, a very short time, we will be looking at county ballot measures, September 24 to 27. I'm not going to lie, it's a very tight, fast-moving project. It's important for you to understand kind of the bigger picture. We work in tandem with a lot of other election laws and timelines and deadlines. And so the legislators weren't thinking of you when they created the law. Like, oh, you're going to translate and then send it out to third-party reviewers and then make changes. And then, that is quite an operation. And I would say that one of the most common concerns of our members is actually the timelines. It's like, how do we get this done? So we've come up with some ways. We have a rotating schedule where we're not reviewing every single word, every single election. So you'll see this. Frequently asked questions are going to be almost identical from election to election. We're recycling a lot. The place where the most new language and new information that has not been translated is going to be in the ballot measures, because those are written by other people besides elections offices. So, and they are the ones we have the shortest timeline. So I just want to share that because it can be frustrating, and we have had members move off the council. They're taking care of their elderly parent or they're traveling, and it's just not a good time for them anymore. So we certainly understand that. I see Meng has a hand up, right?
Yeah, so I know with the ballot measure, sometimes it's confusing. So
Oh,
I don't know,
yes.
like during that time, is there a way for, people that speaks the same language to talk about it or even to ask English speakers or questions about the ballot before we review the translation, just to make sure that we understand the content ourselves?
That's a really good question. And you wouldn't be the first, including native English speakers who can't understand what are they? What does my yes vote mean? Um, so I think what on that I would share that there is a very strict process in law about how ballot titles are created and how the explanatory statements of ballot measures are written. Um, and without going into great detail, because I'm not that much of a subject matter expert, but the community can basically take the drafts to the Supreme Court and go through a process where they're like, this is not clear what's happening, and then the justices on the Supreme Court can make a ruling and determine the final language. And that's because these are written by the filers who have their own agenda. And so, as you know, the way you write things can be unnecessarily confusing if you want a certain outcome, or just use a lot of jargon. And most of our ballot measures, in truth, on the county level, are about money. It's about how much taxes they're going to charge per household or per income, and that can get really sticky. So the short answer is you typically will not have time to do a lot of homework. The first election we ever did was full of, every county had a psilocybin ballot measure, which are basically magic mushrooms. And our translator said, can't we just say magic mushrooms? Well, no, we had to come up with new language. So there will be development of language based on the topic. And some of our translators will struggle with that, like they've never encountered that language before as someone conveying the meaning. So the long answer is sort of, you could read information and you could read the cases about how they clarified the final measure information, but there isn't going to be much of an opportunity to uh, do research. You could ask our office, and we get phone calls from voters all the time. What does this ballot measure mean? And frankly, the only resource for that is to go back to the filer and see what they meant. So it's a difficulty, and it will be a challenge at times. The short answer, it will be a challenge at times, probably not enough time to do a lot of research. Aida, yes.
Um,
You're muted now, and then click it again and you'll be unmuted. Nope. Click the microphone. We heard you. And, oh, there you go. There you are.
Will we have access to the English version? Because,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, that's
Yep.
important to be able to read that, not only what was translated, but also, the source language is really important to know.
Yes. That's that will be sent out in the share file from Melissa, the source language, so you can see if the meaning is accurate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we also have access to argument against like the statements? Because sometimes we get some information from it as well, just to understand what it is.
Yes, we will have both the English and the translation. That's what you meant.
No, I thought the argument and against, like well, filer. Okay.
Yeah. So the
So
filer,
we don't really translate that if it doesn't
if
come.
if the filer submits an argument for or against a measure, we receive the English and we receive their translation. And what we're doing is, in that case, because we didn't provide the translation, we will be reviewing it for meaning accuracy. But it's bad. Okay, let's move on. Aida, do you have another question? Your hand's up. No. Okay. you click the little hand, it'll go down. Next slide, please. Integrity of the council. This is just a reminder that as an appointee of the Secretary of State, LaVon Griffin Valade, you are a public officer, and the work that we do is public record, whether it's in writing or these recordings of our meetings, and the pamphlets themselves become part of the state archives. So it's just important to remember, raise ourselves up and think about that. On some of your applications, we asked if you had any conflicts of interest, and some people mentioned a few, and I need to follow up with a couple, but I didn't see anything problematic. You know, perhaps you worked for an organization that advocated for or against a state measure, or, you know, is political in some way. But basically, the bylaws describe this in more detail, but you should report any potential conflicts of interest. You don't want to be on the front page of a newspaper, and we don't either. So, yeah. And then people say, what are conflicts of interest? Truly, for this council, it would be like, I guess, I can't even think what it would be exactly, but somehow trying to influence the vote through your work. I think that would be one, because you work for another organization that wrote some of the things that you're working on, for example. And also, it wouldn't be unusual for you to be asked if you would like to be at a Vietnamese New Year event and talk about your work of the council, or asked to be at a table at some community organization. And we really appreciate that, the outreach that you might do as an extra, not required by any means. But just let us know when you're going to be representing officially the Translation Advisory Council. And we also have materials we can send out with you so that the message is consistent. In your handbook, you'll see that there are two kinds of training that you have to complete, and we hold the money. We hold the money until you complete it. So we have a ethics training, and so that will explain some more about potential conflicts of interest, and then a respectful workplace. So it covers discrimination and harassment in the workplace. These take about 30 minutes each, and they will be online in an account that we're going to be talking about in a minute. They're basically online training, and they're pretty common sense. And all employees have to do this too. Okay, next we're going to talk about paperwork. And this, if you are a state of Oregon employee, Chantal, you're welcome to step out now, because you already have a Workday account, but you can certainly stay because it's really riveting. So paperwork, we work in conjunction with our human resource department, our business office, and our IT department. And so we're partners, and you're a partner with us. You're not an employee, but in some ways, you're going to be accessing accounts that are like you are an employee. And the first one is our Workday account. And we're going to be paying you some money, either travel expenses or a stipend. And so in order to do that, we have to establish you as eligible to work in the United States, even though you're a volunteer. So you're going to fill out an I-9 form. And this is in great detail at the end of the handbook. But basically, you're going to have a virtual meeting with our human resource office. You're going to present documents. You're going to gather up your documents that are listed. So it's usually things like passports, passport, social security card, driver's license. There's a whole list of things, and you're going to fax those to your person in HR, and they're going to review the list, and you're going to complete the process. But it has several steps. It's official government language, but if you worked anywhere else, you've probably done this before. It's just going to be done a little bit differently because you're not in Salem.
So it can only be faxed and not emailed?
Not emailed. Yeah, there's very strict laws about reviewing the documents, and so this is our happy in between. You used to have to come into Salem and show them, so, but only fax. Yeah, but Amberly, our HR specialist, will tell you more about that. Okay, And for every process, there is a contact you can get help. Next slide. You're going to have a Workday account. I have one, Melissa has one, you will have one. And Chantal has one because she works for the judicial department. If you have one and if you work for a county and they use Workday, it will be, you still have to do this, but only state employees don't have to. So you're going to be sent an email after you meet with our HR representative. She's going to put in your Workday account information, which will generate an email, which is going to tell you, give you a link to Workday, give you your Oregon ID number as an employee / volunteer. It's called an Oregon number. And then the go through the steps to create your own password. So you get an entry password, but then you're going to change it. There's also a multi-factor authentication system for security. And that will create your Workday account where you're going to access some other things that we're going to talk about next. But basically, Workday is an administrative paperwork system and important for you. We go through this because it's confusing. There's a lot of steps. It's very legalese and government. So just be patient. This will be something you'll be doing over the next couple weeks. Next slide. All right. Will we have an email account from the council? No, Chi, you will not. You'll be using your personal email. Yes, I wanted to point out Chi Richmond is here and Stephanie is here. Very diligent bilingual employees of Clackamas County. Because we're going to be paying you some funds, you need to fill out a W-4 withholding. That's also done in Workday, interestingly enough. And there's instructions about how you're going to get to the right location and how to do that. And the sad news is that stipends and I think travel, I'm not quite sure, are taxable income in Oregon. And our office can't give you any tax advice, but they can help you with the system, help you with the form, help you with Workday. So it's very interesting, but that's Oregon tax law. I'll wait to that. Yeah, right now. Next slide, volunteer stipends. So if you're not a full-time public service employee in Oregon, so you don't work for a community college, a county, a state agency, a special district, for example, that's not all inclusive, you're eligible to receive a volunteer stipend. And this is in the law as well, but they also have a lot of criteria and even goes back to constitutional law. Basically, why can't everyone get it? Initially, we did offer it, but we have been advised by the Department of Justice that we cannot. So in the Constitution, it basically says you can't have more than 2 lucrative jobs at a time in the state of Oregon. So this is super lucrative, $166 a meeting, but that's the opinion we've received. So just FYI, sorry about that. And I have spoken with each of you about that if you're in the situation. So we have a stipend policy and frequently asked questions. You can take a look at it. There's even an option if you have a nonprofit organization you'd like to give your stipend to. That's also an option. It's pretty cool. Our Marshallese member does that. And Stephanie has a question. You there, Stephanie? Okay.
It's in the chat. She said, where can we find the guidebook for translating that was talked about at the beginning of the presentation, or did I misunderstand?
Hi, Stephanie. So Stephanie is a Clackamas County employee joining us today. That is the handbook that we were talking about. I believe you might be referencing, and I don't mind sharing it with you so we can get you an electronic copy, no problem. And then the style guide, I think I've shared that with you, but we can get that for you, and the glossaries are online. Not what you're looking for, just let us know. The process, you're going to sign an electronic form for those stipends, and you're going to complete direct deposit information so it goes right into your bank. In order to get these stipend payments, if you're eligible, you need to complete that training by December 31st. The 2 30-minute trainings. Is there any more questions? I can't quite see as a presenter sometimes. Right. Next slide. Woohoo! Everybody is eligible for travel reimbursement. So when you come to the August meeting, we will pay you for your mileage, reimburse you for your mileage, and that will follow our Secretary of State travel policy, which is in line with the state policy. We can send you that as a check through the mail, or you can do an automatic bank deposit. And the bank deposit for the stipends and the bank deposit for the travel reimbursement are different processes. So one doesn't take care of both of them. Follow the instructions in your handbook. Also, if you're driving your car to a meeting and you're going to be requesting mileage reimbursement, you also have to turn in a form that acknowledges that you have private vehicle insurance, because it will be primary if you're in an accident. So these are the bureaucratic things that we do. And you will get more information. All the members will get this before the August 10th meeting with links to the forms again and so on. Okay. And we are going to end on time. I think I've got one more slide. Yes, slide. So the legislature and the universe that we live in have decided that it would be important to protect election workers. And so this is an option that you have. You're not required to do it, but you can make your address confidential as a member of the council. We consider you an election, member of our team. And I don't want to go into craziness. I haven't had anyone in our office except someone stalking them on Instagram, I think. But, sometimes the way things are crazy, if someone requests public records from Oregon's Secretary of State for your address, or as a voter, we are required to provide it unless you meet some exemptions, like you're in a confidentiality program with the Department of Justice because of domestic violence, yada, yada. And so it's an option you have, and we're glad to offer it to you. I just wanted to highlight, though, if you choose this option, you have to choose an alternate address for your ballots every election. So either you'll have it sent to your daughter's home or your friend's home, or the other option is you would go to your county elections official, LM, and he would hold your ballot for you until you pick it up. So that's an option, and that's an electronic file. And we don't actually approve these. They go directly now to the county office, and they will do it. So if you did that and someone said, what's the Translation Advisory Council? We could help you out, or you could explain it, no problem. 12:59. That was fast. There's a lot more. Here's our contact information. Thanks, Melissa. And please review your handbook. Keep reading through it. Look for those examples that I mentioned for doing the reviews. And come join us on August 10th. And then I will send you a link to a video from the training from Chantel Portillo. She is an American Translator Association certified Spanish translator, expert in her field, also a court certified court interpreter. So we have, she has more credentials than needed for this job, but she's a wonderful resource, and she's happy to join us. I know she is, because she begged me, please let me join. She had to wait 2 years. We have a question in the chat. And if anyone needs to hop off, you can do that now, and we'll stay online a few minutes longer answering last minute questions.
Yes.
Thank you,
Ming
everyone.
wants to. Oh.
Yeah, I'll take
Ming
Ming's
wants to
questions.
know
I just wanted to
if-
let everyone know they can hop off.
Absolutely. Ming wants to know if they'll get a copy of the slides.
We can do that, yes. Any other questions?
Ida?
Also, I would like a copy of the handbook as well.
Okay, Melissa will help you We will mail one to you, and there's one electronic too. Got that, Melissa?
Mhm.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you on August 10th. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.